Okay, so where we last left off, we had finished getting our end game screen done. We had the score popping up, the best score popping up, so on and so forth. We're going to start getting the pause button done. So, and pretty much what we want it to do is when we click the main screen, we're going to have that little same panel pop up again. It says play, quit, name of the game. And then, when we press the button, it'll continue playing the game. So I'm actually going to go back to my start screen. And since my panel in my main game is going to look pretty much exactly like that, it's just going to have different scripts on it. I'm just going to create a prefab of it by dragging it in there. And then I'm going to go back to my main scene. It's probably going to ask me to save. Yes, it does. And then I'm just going to take that same panel and drag it right back into my canvas. And as you can see, there's a few things I want to do to it. First of all, we're going to break the prefab instance of it. That way, what we do to it isn't going to affect the panel in the other scene, in case we accidentally click apply or something. Game object, break prefab instance. Okay. Obviously, we don't want it to be see-through, so we'll fix that by cranking the alpha setting all the way up. As a matter of fact, because otherwise it's going to look weird in all of them. Where's my panel? There it is. I'll do it to this too. I'll fix it in the end game screen in a bit. Alright. So, first thing we need to make is the button. So, we will go to UI, button. And if you remember, we do not need, and I leave it in the, when I do my UI, I generally leave it in the game screen because then I can see exactly what it's going to look like. If you notice, my game is actually way down here because this represents world space and this canvas represents screen space. So they line up differently in our editor. So rather than get confused, I just look at it in there. And we're going to rename it quit button. Or, I'm sorry, pause. Just like before, we're not going to use any text on it, so we can delete that. We're going to select our UI sprite image right here. Click this little icon. And there is a pause button icon. We'll select that. Looks like an odd size, so we'll resize it to 32 by 32, just so it's a standard size. And then we'll position it. I click on this here, hit the Alt, and bottom right. There. And then now we need to start adding some behavior to this button. So we're going to create a script. Pause game. Create and add. Now we're going to go back and edit the script. All right. So the first thing we want it to do, obviously when we're playing the game here, this panel is going to be shut off. Okay? So we need to be a way to turn that on. So that means we're going to need a reference to that game object to turn it on. So since it's disabled when we start, we can't just find it in the scene. So we have to do as a public game object. Then we can just drag that into the inspector. We'll call it pause panel. Then we're going to create a new void, or a new method here. Since it doesn't return anything, it's a void. And we'll just call it click pause. There. And then the first thing we're going to want to do is enable that pause panel. And for that, well, first thing that pops up is this active, and it says that that's depreciated, so we don't want to use that. What we are looking for is set active. And that tells us we need a bool. So, true. And then the other thing we need to do is we're going to use the time function again in the math functions. And we're going to set the time scale to equal 0. And this will stop all things that are being affected by time. Therefore, it should stop. We want it to stop our barrier and the rotating of the chicken, but not the activating of the UI and stuff like that. So those things aren't affected by time. So we'll hit Control S to save. We'll open it back up. Why is that still there? It duplicated it somehow. It's weird. What scene am I in? Where did my pause button go? Did I do it in the wrong game? I believe I did. Didn't I? Nope. Well, I know I created my pause button. Where is it? Oh, I had my camera zoomed in. I'm dumb. Okay. So we will, like we said before, we want to where is it? Wrong thing. Pause game. Oh, save. There we go. I think I'd be a little more organized than this. All right, and now we can drag this panel right into here. Excuse me. And then we want to tell it what to do when it's on, what function to call when it's on click, and the function we want is on this actual pause button. And the function we're looking for comes from the pause game class that we created. Click pause. Now, when we click the pause button, a little panel pops up. But you can see that the chicken and the barrier are still going. However, because the time has stopped, it's not reading the input for clicking the mouse button to fire the egg out, because that's happening every update. So we need to make it so that this is fixed. And the way that we fix that, if you remember, a few videos back, probably one of the first things we did was to get it to rotate. We had rotate chicken and rotate barrier. And the problem that we're running into, the reason this is happening, is because we told it to adjust it by this rotation speed only once, only in the start. So it's not checking against this rotation, this time variable in the math function every frame. It's only doing it once. So when we tell it to pause, since it's not checking against this anymore, it only does every frame. It only did it in the start. It's never checking again against that delta time. So we want to fix that. And the way that we fix that is we're going to declare a float right inside this method. Now, this float right here. This is used by the entire class. We can call it for, we could have the rotate this function call it. We could have this function call it. We could create a whole other function to call it. This is a local variable. It's only going to be used in this update class. That doesn't mean we can't. I'll show you. So we'll go public speed or float speed is equal to, we're going to just copy that. And we don't even need it anymore. And instead, we're going to modify this by speed. See, and I'll show you what I mean that that's a local variable. I can't, like here I can call rotation speed, but I can't just go speed. It gives me a little red squiggly line saying, what is that? Well, that's because we declared it only for this class, for this method. So we're going to save that. And then, of course, we're going to copy it. I'm going to paste that right back in there. And the first thing we'll notice now, it'll still rotate, but it'll probably rotate much slower, much faster. That was odd. Oh, because we forgot to change this to speed. There. There we go. Now we got it all rotating again. Still firing. And when we click the pause button, now it pauses. However, you'll notice, because it still reads the input from the mouse button, it still fires out that first egg. So we're going to fix that right away too. And the way that we do that is we go over to our pause button. And what we want to add is what's called an event trigger. And this will listen for certain events. And it'll ask us for an event type. And what we want, this is the cursor is considered the pointer when the pointer enters. And then we also need one for when the pointer exits. And what we're going to do with these, we're going to go right back to our pause game script. And we're going to create some more functions. Again, they're a void because they're not returning anything. We'll call it over button. And off button. All right. So if you remember, we're going to go back to our chicken, our player, had a bool on there for not firing. So we want to get a reference to that. So we need that rotate chicken script. And again, we're just going to call it player. Doesn't need to be public. We can make it private. That way we don't accidentally drag anything into it, mess it all up. And we're going to go, just like before with the game manager, player equals game object dot find object with tag. Remember, we tagged it as player. And then we want to get the component of rotate chicken. Okay. And then all we need this to say is, since it's one line, I'm not even going to really format it a whole lot. We're just going to go player, can fire. When we're over the button, we want it to be false. And player there. And then we might as well actually so that when they actually click it, if they don't start clicking on the screen all over the place, we'll put it there too, just to be on the safe side. It probably doesn't need it, but you never know. But now you'll see, oh, we gotta set the events. My bad. So we want to go to right here, the object that has the class we want to call, class, and the function we need. We want over button, and then this one, button, off of button, oh, pause game, off button. And now what should happen when we look at the player in our inspector here, we have can fire to be true. Select it this time, hit play. And when I go over the pause button, you'll see that the can fire is false. So when I click the button, it does not fire an egg. And just like I said before, I should have made that false. But turns out, like I said, we don't need it. Excellent. Now we just got to get it so that when they click the play button back on our panel right here, it continues the game. So let's we'll go to edit the play game script. And for this, we want another void continue game. So of course, what do we want them to happen when we click continue game? Well, we need to turn off that panel. So right, we need to reset the time scale back to 1. So, and we don't need a reference for that. And we also need to make it so that the player can fire again. So public I'm just going to cheat. And copy all of that. It's pretty much the same. Paste right over it. There. Now for all we need to do here, panel dot set active to false. We want the time scale again to be back to 1. I should really put an F after it because it is a float. And then, of course, player can fire equal true. And that should do it. Let's make sure. So we hit Control S. Back to our game. And when we hit pause button, it pauses. When we hit play, it stops. That's interesting. That shouldn't happen. Well, I'm running out of time for this video, so I will figure out why that happened, and we'll continue in fixing that in the next video.